fear rarely announces itself loudly. More often, it arrives as a whisper that refuses to fade, embedding itself into routine, until even the most ordinary moments feel unstable. That is how the warning from Sheila Carter takes root inside Taylor Hayes. It is not the words themselves that haunt her, but the certainty behind them. Sheila's message is not framed as a threat, yet it carries the unmistakable weight of one. It suggests inevitability, consequence, and a future already in motion. From that moment forward, Taylor's world begins to contract, as though invisible walls are slowly closing in around her. The change in Taylor is gradual, but unmistakable. Her once steady presence becomes erratic, her warmth replaced by a distracted reserve that unsettles those closest to her. She moves through her days with caution rather than confidence, as if every decision carries unseen risk. The smallest disruptions feel amplified, ordinary conversations suddenly exhausting. Sleep becomes elusive, and when rest does come, it offers no relief. Her thoughts circle endlessly, replaying Sheila's warning in different forms, each iteration darker than the last. Taylor does not panic outwardly. Instead, she withdraws, believing that control lies in silence. This withdrawal does not go unnoticed by John Finnegan, whose professional training has taught him that subtle changes often signal deeper distress. Finn sees the way his mother lingers in thought, the way her eyes lose focus mid-conversation, the way she grows quiet when she once filled rooms with calm authority. He notices how she avoids certain topics, how her smiles arrive late and leave early. To Finn, these are not signs of moodiness or fatigue. They are indicators of fear, unspoken and unresolved. His concern is not dramatic, but persistent, rooted in both love and clinical instinct. Finn's worry deepens precisely because he cannot identify a clear source. He does not suspect external danger. He does not consider Deacon Sharp or Sheila as catalysts. Instead, he assumes what so many caregivers do when faced with emotional withdrawal, that his mother is struggling internally, perhaps overwhelmed by guilt, stress, or an unresolved psychological wound. Finn frames the situation as something he can help manage, something that can be addressed through patience, support, and understanding. His intention is pure, shaped by the belief that no one should suffer in silence, least of all someone who has dedicated her life to healing others. When Finn gently attempts to reach her, his approach is careful and respectful. He does not push for answers or demand explanations. He offers presence, stability, and reassurance, hoping that safety will invite honesty. Yet in doing so, he unknowingly grazes the edges of truths Taylor has worked desperately to conceal. His concern brushes against the subject of trust, of boundaries, of relationships that complicate one's sense of self. Each well-meaning inquiry tightens the knot inside Taylor, not because Finn is wrong, but because he is close, dangerously close, to a truth she believes could destroy more than it reveals. Taylor responds with deflection rather than denial. She redirects conversations, minimizes her distress, and attributes her unease to abstract causes: professional fatigue, emotional overload, the lingering weight of past experiences. These explanations are not lies so much as partial truths, fragments offered in place of the whole. She convinces herself that protecting Finn from the reality of her situation is an act of love. In her mind, knowledge equals danger, and silence becomes a shield. The more Finn presses gently, the more Taylor retreats inward, reinforcing the distance that already threatens to isolate her completely. Finn senses the evasion immediately. His training tells him that avoidance often signals shame or fear rather than instability, yet his emotional proximity clouds that judgment. He misinterprets Taylor's guardedness as evidence of internal guilt, perhaps stemming from unresolved trauma or self-blame. The possibility that his mother might be hiding something concrete never fully registers. Instead, he worries that she is punishing herself emotionally, carrying burdens she believes she deserves. This misunderstanding deepens his resolve to help, even as it leads him further down the wrong path. The dynamic between them shifts subtly but significantly. Finn becomes more attentive, more involved, adjusting his own routines to monitor Taylor's well-being. He frames his actions as care, but they begin to feel invasive to Taylor, whose anxiety now has a new dimension. She is no longer only afraid of Sheila's warning, she is afraid of being exposed by her own son's compassion. Each interaction becomes a calculation, every word weighed for potential implication. Taylor finds herself trapped between two fears, the consequences of secrecy and the fallout of confession. This internal conflict erodes Taylor's sense of agency. She begins to doubt her ability to navigate the situation alone, yet the idea of sharing the truth feels catastrophic. The relationship with Deacon, already fraught with moral complexity and external risk, now becomes a source of profound internal division. Taylor fears that revealing even a fraction of it would confirm Sheila's power over her life, validating the warning she so desperately wants to ignore. Silence, though suffocating, still feels safer than vulnerability. Finn, unaware of the true stakes, continues his quiet investigation. He reads between lines, observes patterns, and draws conclusions based on incomplete information. Each step brings him closer to the truth without revealing it outright. He notices the timing of Taylor's anxiety, the subjects she avoids most fiercely, the names that cause her posture to stiffen almost imperceptibly. Though he does not yet connect these clues to Deacon, he senses that the issue is not purely psychological. Something external is exerting pressure, something Taylor believes she must manage alone. Ironically, Finn's unwavering support becomes the very force that intensifies Taylor's fear. His kindness highlights the cost of her deception, making the silence feel heavier with each passing day. She begins to question whether her secrecy truly protects him, or whether it merely delays an inevitable reckoning. Yet the warning from Sheila echoes relentlessly, reminding her that exposure could unleash consequences beyond her control. In this mental tug-of-war, Taylor's identity fractures between healer and patient, mother and woman, protector and protected. The tragedy of the situation lies in its asymmetry. Finn is moving closer to the truth out of love, while Taylor is moving away from it out of fear. Neither intends harm, yet the distance between them widens with every attempt to bridge it. Taylor becomes increasingly isolated, trapped in a reality where every choice feels wrong. Speak, and risk devastation. Stay silent, and watch the erosion of trust unfold slowly but inexorably. As the days pass, it becomes clear that this tension cannot remain contained indefinitely. Finn's proximity to the truth grows more dangerous with each observation, each connection he makes unconsciously. Taylor senses this escalation, even if she cannot articulate it. The warning from Sheila no longer feels hypothetical, it feels imminent. The line between protection and destruction blurs, leaving Taylor suspended in a state of perpetual anxiety. In the end, the most unsettling aspect of this unfolding crisis is not the threat Sheila represents, but the quiet certainty that love alone cannot shield anyone from consequence. Taylor's fear, Finn's devotion, and the secret binding them together create a fragile equilibrium destined to break. The question is no longer whether the truth will surface, but how much damage it will cause when it does. And as Finn continues his well-intentioned pursuit of answers, unaware of how close he is to the truth about Deacon, the silence that once felt protective begins to resemble a fuse, burning slowly, steadily, and inevitably toward an explosion neither of them is prepared to face. As the days pass, the line between fear and fracture begins to dissolve inside Taylor Hayes. What once felt like anxiety now mutates into something far more invasive, something that no amount of professional self-awareness can contain. Her thoughts no longer move in linear patterns. They loop, stall, and splinter, replaying fragments of Sheila Carter's warning until the meaning erodes into pure dread. Taylor tries to anchor herself in routine, in logic, in the clinical frameworks she has relied on for decades, yet those tools fail her. This is not a familiar psychological descent. It feels foreign, aggressive, and oddly accelerated, as if her mind is being pushed rather than pulled. The first unmistakable rupture comes quietly. Taylor begins to lose time. Minutes stretch into blank spaces she cannot account for. Conversations dissolve before she can recall how they ended, and familiar environments momentarily feel distorted, as though viewed through warped glass. She grows hypersensitive to sound and light, startled by movements that once would have gone unnoticed. Sleep, already fragile, fractures entirely, replaced by waking nightmares that bleed into daylight. The fear she carries no longer feels proportional to circumstance. It feels imposed, invasive, and relentless. To John Finnegan, the shift is alarming. What he initially believed to be a severe psychological response to stress now presents symptoms that trouble him on a deeper, more clinical level. Taylor's effect becomes erratic, swinging between emotional flatness and acute agitation without clear triggers. Her cognitive processing slows at times, then accelerates into frantic overanalysis. Finn recognizes these signs not as classic anxiety or trauma response, but as something that does not fit neatly into any diagnosis he knows. That uncertainty unsettles him far more than any confirmed condition could. Finn begins to question the timeline. Taylor's deterioration does not align with gradual psychological breakdown. It coincides too precisely with Sheila's warning, with the period following a handful of seemingly innocuous encounters. Finn recalls moments he dismissed at the time: Taylor's sudden dizziness, unexplained nausea, her complaints of a metallic taste that appeared and vanished without pattern. Individually, these symptoms meant little. Together, they suggest intrusion rather than collapse. Taylor, meanwhile, begins to doubt her own sanity in terrifying ways. She questions whether her fear of Sheila has finally unmoored her mind, whether the stress of secrecy and moral conflict has triggered a delayed psychotic break. As a psychiatrist, the irony is unbearable. She recognizes the symptoms even as she experiences them, trapped in the dual role of observer and patient. This awareness does not bring clarity, it intensifies the horror. If she is losing her mind, she knows exactly what that means, and exactly how little control she may have left. Yet there are moments when the fog lifts, just enough for Taylor to sense that something is wrong beyond psychology. The fear feels too sharp, too chemically precise. Her panic arrives without emotional build-up, striking suddenly and violently, then receding just as abruptly. Her thoughts feel tampered with, as though her natural emotional responses are being amplified and distorted by an external force. In these brief moments of clarity, Taylor wonders whether she is being driven into madness rather than succumbing to it. Finn's concern crosses a threshold when he realizes that Taylor's condition worsens after specific interactions and improves slightly when she is isolated. He begins to monitor her environment with quiet urgency, examining patterns he once ignored. His training tells him that psychological trauma does not behave this way, not with such consistency, not with such precision. The possibility he has avoided now presses forward with frightening clarity: Taylor may not be unraveling on her own. She may be being dismantled. The idea that Sheila could be involved feels unthinkable and yet unavoidable. Finn has spent years trying to believe that Sheila's chaos belongs to the past, that distance and boundaries have rendered her harmless. But Sheila has never needed proximity to exert influence. Her power has always lain in anticipation, in fear, in manipulation executed just far enough from detection to evade consequence. The notion that she might have introduced something into Taylor's system, something subtle, cumulative, and destabilizing, no longer feels paranoid. It feels plausible. Taylor's condition deteriorates rapidly after this realization, as though the body itself is rebelling against prolonged violation. She begins to experience intrusive thoughts that do not feel like her own, violent emotional swings disconnected from memory or logic. The shame of it crushes her. She withdraws further, afraid that any attempt to explain what she's experiencing will only confirm the narrative that she is mentally unwell. The fear Sheila planted now bears its intended fruit: isolation, self-doubt, and silence. Finn's internal conflict becomes unbearable. If Taylor is suffering from a psychological breakdown, he must intervene immediately to protect her from herself. But if she has been drugged, time is already running out. Each day of hesitation allows the substance, whatever it is, to entrench itself further, potentially causing irreversible damage. The stakes shift from emotional support to medical emergency, and Finn realizes with horror that his initial assumption may have delayed critical intervention. The tragedy is that Sheila's strategy, if indeed she has acted, is flawless in its cruelty. By targeting Taylor's mind rather than her body outright, she ensures plausible deniability. Any accusation can be dismissed as paranoia. Any symptom can be attributed to stress, guilt, or emotional collapse. Taylor's own profession becomes the weapon used against her, transforming her expertise into a liability. The more she knows, the less she is believed, even by herself. As Finn moves closer to uncovering the truth, Taylor slips further from reach. She begins to fear Finn's concern, interpreting his attention as surveillance rather than care. Sheila's warning echoes in distorted form, twisting Finn's love into another perceived threat. The line between protector and persecutor blurs in Taylor's fractured perception, and that confusion seals her isolation completely. By the time Finn finally allows himself to consider the unthinkable, that his mother's madness may be manufactured rather than organic, the damage is already profound. Taylor stands on the edge of psychological collapse, her identity splintered by fear, chemistry, and manipulation. Whether her mind has broken under pressure, or been forcibly shattered by Sheila's hand becomes the central, terrifying question. And perhaps the most chilling truth is this: the answer may be both. Fear alone can destabilize a mind, and a drug can exploit that vulnerability with surgical precision. Sheila, master of psychological warfare, would not choose between the two. She would combine them, ensuring that even if the truth emerges, it arrives too late to fully undo what has been done. As the story moves forward, one thing becomes clear. Taylor's descent is not merely a personal tragedy, it is a crime disguised as mental illness, a warning to anyone who believes madness must originate within. And as Finn races against time to separate illness from interference, the question is no longer whether Sheila has crossed a line, but whether Taylor can ever fully reclaim herself once that line has been crossed.